Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Webinar Wednesday. I'm Martin. I'm going to be joined today by Karen. So, hi Karen.
Hi there. I'll be in the background and helping out with the Q&A today. And as always, if you have a question, please use the Q&A
Hang on.
tab.
Hang on, I'll be right with you. 2 seconds. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. That's the one.
And please keep your questions on topic. And we're a little rusty. It's been a few months since we've done this, so hopefully we'll get it together by a few minutes. Okay, Martin, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Karen. Right, hello everybody. Today we've got quite a feast for you. We've got a couple of projects. The first one is going to be dealing with local fonts and more, or namely the WOFF2 fonts. Okay, so I've got a project. In fact, this is the project from our let's just have a quick look at it. This is the project from our translations. I thought this would be a good one to show fonts with. But before we get into this and start, if you remember, or you may not have seen, we did quite a while back a how to embed Google Fonts into a project. This is very similar, except for we're using those fonts now as WOFF2 files, and they're now going to be embedded into the skin, so they're all local. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, but I'm going to open up a page, and that page gave us all the different fonts that you could get from Google. Now we will put this link somewhere in the text for the webinar so you can find it, but the idea of this page is to see which font you would like to use. Now there's also a handy little website which is the Google Font what's it called, helper, and this is what it looks like. Again, we'll put this link in the website, or the in the webinar notes. And what you do is, once you've found your font, you can type it in here, and you can then download the or what this website does is it converts it for you to the WOFF2 format that we want to use. Now the font I'm going to use today is one called Calam, and the reason being is it's quite different from our normal font that we use in the skin, so you can definitely see the change when we select the font. So when we're in this page, what do we need to do? Well, here is the regular font, and I also want to be able to use it with bold, so I'm going to select 700 as well. All right, so these are the two styles that I'm going to select. We are going to select modern browsers because we want to select or obviously support modern browsers. And here you can see we've got WOFF and WOFF2. Okay, now we're only really interested in WOFF2 today, so what we'll be doing is modifying this for WOFF2. Also, customize the folder prefix. In Pano2VR, what we want to do is when we create an output, we want to create a folder called fonts. So we're going to modify this folder, or this prefix, and you can see we modified it here as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is select this and copy it, because we will need all this code. And then of course I want to download those fonts. So let's just make sure I've got everything covered. I've got my two different typeface or weights, as it were. I've selected modern browsers. I've adjusted the prefix, and now we're going to download. Okay. I'm going to keep this page available because that code is, we need that. So if I accidentally do something like lose the copy, I can always go back to it. Right, so this is the download, and you can see we've got WOFF and WOFF2. As I said, we're only interested in the WOFF2, so I'm going to select both of those and drag them into my projects folder, just like that. Okay. Right, so now that we've got this, we can now go back to Pano2VR and start embedding them. Right, so with that said, let's open up Pano2VR. Now I'm going to position my windows a little differently, so I can just click on whatever I need to get to whatever screen. So I'm going to have the Pano2VR here. I'm going to open up the skin editor down here, so I can just click between the two. And I'm going to open up the output here, because obviously I want to utilize the live update, so I want everything available. So let's go back to the skin, and what we're going to be using for the embedding is the code element. All right, so I'm going to select that and click and add it to the skin. I'm going to just double click and I'm just going to give it an ID. Let's just call it local underscore fonts. You can obviously call it whatever you need to, but that's what I'm going to call it. And right, so getting into the nuts and bolts of this then, you can see this is where this code is going to go. So I'm just going to open up the text editor and we're going to paste it in. Boom, there it is. So that's all that text that we had. Right, now, what we need to do is slightly modify this so Pano2VR can use it. Okay, so what we need to do then is add, I'm just going to add a couple of spaces at the top. Now, for Pano2VR to use this, it's gonna need its own, I don't know, code block, as it were. So it's going to be /*, which is very much similar to what the code already has, but then we're going to add an exclamation mark. All right, and I'm just going to close that off, add a couple of spaces, and we're going to close it with, again, the asterisk and /, so you can see that here if you forget that. Now we're going to want these also to be used in CSS, so I've got to give it a CSS style tag. So I'm just going to give it the brackets and STYLE style, and do the same thing down here but with a close tag, so /TYLE. Right, okay, so that's now encapsulated it in what we need to bring this into Pano2VR. Now you may see here that we are looking at WOFF2 and the WOFF. Now I said we're not using this, but the thing we've got to note here is if you look on the last one, it uses a semicolon just here, and the line above it just uses a comma. So if we're going to remove this, what we need to do is change that comma to a semicolon, and this is about as geeky it's going to get, so which I'm pleased to say. So let's just do that and change that one to a semicolon. All right, so that's basically the code block done. Now what we want to do is select the local files. So I'm going to click this. This opens up my folder. I'm going to select the two fonts and add them to the local files table. Now, what we did up here, or if you remember, we actually adjusted the prefix so it was fonts /. We need to add this here for this to work, because obviously these will be in the fonts subfolder of the output. So we're going to type in fonts /, and we need to do that on both of these lines. So /. Right, so that is basically the font embedded. We've not got it, we're not using it yet, but that's what we need to do to embed this into the skin. And that's the important part actually. When you do this, this will actually be embedded into the GGSK skin file. So once we've finished this, you don't need to have these WOFF2 files. When you give someone the skin, all of this is all embedded. So this is all local fonts. So this is the great part about it. Okay, so that's the techie bit gone on there. So I'm going to throw this back to Karen. I know it's a little bit early, but we've just covered quite a little bit of codey bits there, and just say, you know, Karen, do we have any questions for this?
Hi. No, we don't have any questions, but Marco did bring up the fact that using Google Fonts is really hard to work around because of the GDPR, and that's why we've added this. So that you don't have to go to Google Fonts or to Google servers in order to get the fonts. So now you have them locally, and I think that's I don't know if that was made clear before, but that's what we're showing here, and that's what's new here.
Okay, I think I hope I got that across. Local fonts, as Karen has just explained, in the previous webinar where we did fonts, obviously it went over to the Google servers and you use the fonts from there. With this, they're all local. The fonts are in your output folder. It doesn't go anywhere other than your output folder. So the GDPR is covered when using this. Okay, Karen, any more on that, or was that it?
I think that's it. That's all.
Awesome. Right. So that's basically getting the fonts into the skin. So what we do now is just act like we would do with any other CSS fonts. So, but the only thing I will do is this code block is an active element. So what I'm going to do is select it. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to make it permeable, because with it sitting there, if you're dragging the panorama and you should happen to bump into it, then you won't be able to drag the pano because it'd be an active element. So I just like to make it permeable. Right, okay, so with all that done, if we click in the skins canvas, you'll see our embedded style sheet. And here we go. This is what it looks like. So you can see our default fonts here. So what we're going to do then is bring this in, okay, and I'm going to make it a style. All right, so the way we're going to do that is I'm going to give it a class. So I'm going to give it dot, and we're going to call it KALAM, Kalam, and we need to use open and close brackets and then just do that. Okay, and then what we need to do is just type in font ILY, font family, is that right? Yes, colon. Now, okay, I've typed this as a lowercase, okay, because that's what I'm going to use for my class. But the actual font, the font family name, it starts with a capital. So if I paste that in, we will need to go back and change that to a capital K. Okay, if we don't do that, then it won't work. And then we finish that line off with a semicolon. All right, so you can see there's like the format going on here. So you can see these fonts and semicolon and then the font size. So that's what we're maintaining that and keeping it nice and neat. Okay, so I'm going to click OK to this. And what I'm going to do here now is just save the skin. When I save the skin, we're going to get an update on the output. Now, one of the things I want to quickly show you is with the skin editor, what we've done in the recent updates is our live update is now only when you save the skin. Okay, so if I was to add a rectangle, it doesn't live update. Now, we did actually have a setting, like previously, the setting was to live update all the time. So if I, with the rectangle, if I was to move it, then you can see it updating, and it updates all the time. And it got, with every update you were getting this live update. But it's actually much better to not have this, in our opinion. And so therefore we've set it now so we can move this around. You can make all the adjustments, but when you do a save, I'm using a keyboard shortcut, that's when you see it. Okay, but we thought I'd mention that because if you're used to using it the other way and we've now changed it, then you might say, hey, where's that gone? So that's where it is. Okay, right, well, I'll leave that there actually, that little white rectangle, because I will use that. Anyway, let's get back to the fonts. So what I'm going to do is apply this font to the text body of an info pop-up. So here is the info pop-up, and you can see the font there. Okay, so let's move that over there. Okay, so I'm going to select the info text body, and we're going to cursor down to the CSS classes, and we're going to type in the class, which was Kalam. Okay, and as soon as I update that, save, this will then change the font. There we go. Boom, done. That's it. You've now changed this, and as I said before, this is a local font. So Pano2VR doesn't have to, or rather the output is not fetching these fonts from anywhere. It's local. Okay, so that's the font changed for that text box. And this is using classes. Now, what I'm going to do, because I can, is I'm going to add a variable, because this is quite cool, and I think this is worth showing. And I'm going to call this var font. And I'm going to make this a true-false variable. And this little rectangle, cunningly placed earlier, is going to have the action of mouse click, set variable value. It's going to be for the font, and I'm going to use the not, so it's a toggle. Okay. Anyone guess where I'm going with this? What we're going to do then is move this class out of the classes, and I'm going to add it as a logic block. All right, and what we're going to say is when the variable font equals true, use that class for this text box. I'll just keyboard shortcut and do this, and this is what's going to happen. There's the normal font, and on a button we can change it. How cool is that? So what you could do is have, I'm just thinking out loud here, like if you're going to be doing, accessibility, you can have nice funky fonts. If someone can't read it, click a button, job done. They've got a nice clear font. And you could even add to the font class, perhaps different colors and all that sort of stuff. But, that's just a nice little touch there. Okay. Right, so that's just adding a class. But what if I want the whole skin to use this? Right, well, if I click in the skin canvas... Oh, actually, shall I just shout out to Karen, do we have any questions before I carry on? No? Yes?
No, we don't have any questions. But do you want to show the output folder at all? Like, just to see what what comes out? Or are you going to show that at the end?
Yeah, because obviously because what I want to do is just show the skin file, and then when we create the output, well, I'll do it now. Okay, go on. Force me hand.
We have a question in the middle. Danielle is asking if you could maybe go a little bit slower. He's having a hard time following all the steps. Where should we...
Okay. Yep, no
and
worries.
Lauren says we drink your words.
All right, okay.
We love you guys.
I'll hit slow-mo, okay?
Hit slow-mo. I think...
it's because I'm excited. It's great. I love it. I love it.
So cool.
Anyway, right, this is the output folder as requested by my colleague. And here it is. This is the fonts folder. And you see the two fonts there. And this is all embedded into the GGSK skin file. So all you do is if you hand someone that skin file and they use it, it will all these fonts are embedded. So when they create the output, you will get the fonts folder as well with the fonts in there. So this is the great thing about this. Oh.
There's a can you show again where you got the font file? I think some people missed the very beginning.
Right. Okay. Yep. Absolutely. Right.
And where did you put it? So someone is asking specifically, I wanted to see after you downloaded the font file, where you put it in the Pano folder with, like, did you put it in with the home folder? Like, where are these files?
Right. Okay. So you can see this is my project folder. I've got a project on my desktop, so a folder on my desktop called Fonts. I've opened it up, and this is my Pano2VR. So this is my project file, my skin, my input images, and all I did was download the fonts and copied the WOFF2 files into the main project. This is it. Okay, so this is where they are. So then what I did was went to the skin, and in the code element, we found them, local files, and this is where I had to put the fonts bit here. So we opened this up, we found those two fonts and added them, and then I just added the prefix fonts. So when we export, it puts the two fonts in its own little subfolder in the output. Okay, so that's where they go. So it was copied to the project folder, and then in here in the code element, we picked it up. We clicked open and opened up a file, an open file dialog box, selected these two and brought it into the code element. Okay, right. I hope that answered that.
Yep, that answered it. And I think too, just to know that the fonts folder, the subfolder there, that's just to make things nice. You don't have to have a fonts folder. It can go directly into the project folder. Or
it could. It could.
Yeah, just where. And so Daniel's saying, so the local files tells Pano2VR where to put the files in the output. And yes, Daniel, yes. That is it.
That's why we modified this to say fonts. And when we were getting, let's open up the helper page again. So when we went to the helper page, and let's just type in my Kalam. And here we changed the prefix here, remember? We changed that prefix, and that also has the fonts as well. All right.
Right, and I think that's, yeah, so putting the files in that local file section tells Pano2VR, take those files and put them in the output, and also put them into the skin itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
into the skin file.
So, this skin now, with this, I could actually go into the project file and can just delete them. So yeah, I could delete them so as but because they're now embedded into the GGSK skin file. So you could, as I said before, you could give that to somebody else now, that skin. So you could build someone a skin, put the embedded fonts in there, give it to somebody else. They open it up in Pano2VR, create an output, boom, all the fonts are good, and it will create the font output folder as well. Apparently you can put any file into the local files and it will be added to the skin as well. I've just seen a message.
Oh, there's messages. Okay.
There's messages.
Did we get it right?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't know who's writing this. It says anonymous attendee. So anonymous. And what was the argument you erased? I'm assuming the argument you're talking about is in the logic block.
No. What I was erasing was in this code. We actually had WOFF and WOFF2 where we're only using the WOFF2 files. So I deleted the line for the WOFF, and of course we had a comma here and a semicolon on the last line, but because this is now the last line, we had to remove the comma and replace the semicolon here. But I'm sure if you play back the video and rewind, you'll see it was all I think I explained it quite clearly, but yeah.
But Daniel has the same question as myself. Why use WOFF2 and not WOFF, like normal WOFF? And I mean, is there a reason behind that? Do you know?
Well, basically WOFF2 is supported by most browsers now, and if you start to have multiple fonts in there, you're just making life more difficult for yourself, really, for no real extra gain. So yeah, I mean, if you look at what they support, yeah, so all browsers support it. Well, I say all browsers, I think it's about 96% hit rate on all browsers. So it's 96% rate on all browsers. That's wrong. 96% hit rate on browsers. So yes, it's a widely.
And if you kept both of those in there, would that just confuse things?
It wouldn't. It just wouldn't use it, and it's just extra code in there that you don't need to.
Okay.
I say that, no, actually, you probably would confuse things, because if you do actually go onto a browser that doesn't support WOFF2, that's a really, really old browser, I don't know, some Windows XP machine that's running IE Internet Explorer or whatever it is, then it may try and use the older one. Of course, there's no fonts, but then it would get then it would fall back to the default fonts anyway. So, but yeah, it's funny enough. I've just seen a message, and it's WOFF2 is actually more supported than WebGL anyway. So, so the chances are, if it doesn't support WOFF2, it's not going to support a panorama anyway. So there you go. Right.
Okay, well, I think that's all the questions so far.
Right.
Thanks for that, and you can go back at it. Wait a minute. Sorry, someone just came in. If I embed the fonts, I don't need to make a legal reference to Google, do I?
Nope.
No, you don't. That's the whole point of this. The whole point is that you can embed these fonts in the skin. It's local. It's not going to. You're not pinging any other server anywhere, and this applies to not just fonts, but any other, files that you want to use. But of course, a lot of people are using Google Fonts, and this seems to be causing issues and having to make these, making legal references, as you say. So no, you don't have to do that now. That's why we're showing you this.
Indeed. Right. Okay. So where am I? I am at the point of making it global. That's what I was at the point of doing. So these are all the fonts. So we've created a class, and we've seen showing a class and seen showing toggling the class with a button. But what I want to do now is go back to the embedded style sheet and use this font in the whole of the skin. So all I need to do is just basically copy that, only because I'm too lazy to type it in, and paste it, put a comma there, done, and I can get rid of that. Done. So now the whole skin will use this font. Okay, so here it is, all done. All the skin is using the fonts. Now what we did do, if you remember, is we downloaded two sets of fonts. We downloaded the regular and the bold. Okay, and actually, what I'm going to do here as well, just go back to the style sheet. Remember I was saying that we needed the actual font family, because I did explain this, but I'm going to do it again because it is important. The font family. When I was using it for a style, I used a lowercase k. But the font family from the internet gave it a font family with a capital K. So that's what it needs to be. Or it won't work, okay? Because the font family is Kalam with a capital. So I just thought I'd bring your attention to that. So we've got that done. We've now got it all working, and it's all working in the skin. Let's just refresh that. So of course this won't work anymore because we removed the class from the text box, so the whole text box got it. But as I said, we downloaded two lots of fonts. We downloaded the regular and we downloaded the bold, which basically means now I can select a text box, go down to the text properties, and I can select bold. And as soon as I do that and save, we've now got the bold, because we've got that because we downloaded both the regular and the bold font. So there we go, we've got that. And what we could also do, if I really wanted to, is change that font size to 18 and make that look a little bit sweeter. There you go. Okay, now the reason why I chose this particular project, as I said, is because it's got translations. And yeah, there we go. That's it in German and that's it in English. And you can see all the fonts working as they should. Okay, I think this brings us to a close on this particular project, knowing that I've got another one to go through with you. And on that happy little note, I'm going to throw it back to Karen and say, we got any questions?
Yeah, I think there's, well, I don't think it's a question, but anonymous, if, I'm sorry, you're coming through as anonymous, so it'd be cool if you had a name, but is saying that this seems perhaps okay, he's just giving a correction that the correct definition for the CSS font would be font-family :Kalam cursive. Yeah, okay, he's just writing it there. We can show it to you later. But that's defining the fallback. Okay. Yeah.
Okie dokie.
So yeah. Anyway, we can lay that out later.
Absolutely. I was more interested to find a font that was different but easy to read from our standard font, so you could clearly see it within the output. But yeah, if that is part of what we're talking about. But yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thank you. I'm out.
Okay. Right. One other thing. I did mention about the capital bit and the lowercase. I'm sure I've done this before, but if we select the code block, so I'm selecting the code element and we look at the code block, you can see what I meant by it had a capital here, and that is the font family and it's using a capital, and that's where it is. You can see we've got it here in the bold, so the weight 700, so this is the bold one and this is the regular. Okay. All right, so that was just to make that clear. I didn't use a capital when I was creating the class, but I needed a capital for the font family because the font family is using the capital there, and that's why. Okay, right, with that all said then, I'm going to close this down, and we are now going to go to our second project. And our second project...
We still have a few more font questions coming in. Do you want to go... Are you moving on to part 2 that has nothing to do with fonts, or...
Well, I can go back to fonts. I'm watching my time. That's all. But yeah, no, I think we're good. I mean, let's cover it.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go. I think we can answer this. It says, so Daniel's asking again, how do you make the font global?
Okie dokie. What I did was select the skin canvas in the embedded style sheet, opened it up. And here you could see our standard set of fonts, and all I did was put Kalam in there. So that's now part of the skin's default fonts. So the idea is it would try and show that if that's not available, the next one, if that's not available, and etc. But as this is embedded, the chances are it's always going to be there. So yeah, you can even change the default size and all that sort of stuff. But that's how we've made the font global in the skin. Because if you remember rightly, what we did was we created a class down here, yeah. But But then what I did was remove that class and we put the font family in here. Okay, and then that's available to everything in the GG skin.
Great. And Lauren is asking, can we use any font? Like, that's not a Google font. And we're just using Google fonts as an example. You can use any font.
As long as it's a WOFF 2.
Yeah. Well, you can use, you can not use WOFF 2 and, it just might not, maybe
yeah.
it's not guaranteed to work. I haven't used WOFF 2 in my projects. It seems to work. I've used TTF and stuff. Like, I don't know. So, but.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
I didn't know about WOFF 2, but I'm not a web developer. So, I just used anything and it seemed to work for me. Yeah. So, I'm getting feedback here in my ear. That's so anyone else who doesn't know much about this stuff, TTF they're just a little bit larger files and are made for local usage. But yeah, so you can just know that you don't need to use specifically Google Docs in this workflow. So,
yeah,
and you don't specifically need to use WOFF 2 in this workflow. That's just what we're using in this example. And,
absolutely. Yeah. But the main catch of this webinar is we're embedding them. They're local. You don't have to fetch the fonts from anywhere else. It's local to your project. So it gets past all the legal spiegel that everyone's jumping up and down about.
Yeah, and also someone if you're attending, and we can copy this later over, but someone has posted a link to a converter to WOFF 2, which might be useful.
Yeah, cloud converter. Yep. Okay then. Right. And, any more? Sorry.
Yeah, Winfred's saying it'd be nice if you had a checklist. Yeah, we have tutorials. So we have written tutorials, text tutorials, like 600 pages of them on our website, and this specific tutorial, I can't even remember if it's there yet, but if it's not, it will be there. So yeah, yeah. Oh, and Marco is saying that not all Google fonts are allowed to be locally hosted. Yeah, I don't know. If you can download them, I guess you can use them, but check also the
this is why we were using this Google Web Font Helper.
Oh, okay. That's
this page. So
this
here,
one will let you know.
Well, if you select it, you can download it. Then yeah, I mean, it gives you all the information you need to do it. So a hassle-free way of hosting Google Fonts. So self-hosting. Okay. Self-hosting.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it. I think we need to move on. I think you all know where to find us if you have questions later on. And we will have all of this information later on the webinar page and in the documentation.
Right, okay. And my name's Karen. Right, okay, sorry. I'm having a funny 5 minutes. Don't worry about me. Okay, next project then. Let's go to it. This one I like. I'm in my domain here. This is the skin editor, and I like the skin editor. Right, okay. So what are we going to do with this project? Now, we gave a little sneak preview. I don't actually have a built output, which is a bit naughty because I wanted to show you. But basically what we're going to do is create a skin with a set of buttons, and you'll be able to select the buttons using the skin configuration, and the controller will adapt to it. And then what we'll be going on to do is looking at the controller and looking at some of our new triggers. So does has the project got has the project got a map, has the project got any sound, has the project got any this, that and the other, and then the skin can adapt to what your project's got. So that's what we're going to look at. And did I actually have I've got an output here. I might actually have. No, okay, forget that. It's not ready. Right, okay, so that's fine. Okay, so we are going to build this project. So I'm going to open up Skin, and I'm going to just give you a little bit of background of what we've done to the skin, or what so far. Now, I don't know if you guys saw it or if you remember, we actually did a webinar saying building professional skins, which was how to build them with the skin configurator, and it involved a lot of actions and a lot of logic blocks and a lot of this, that and the other. And yeah, I mean, if you're a real skin junkie, you would have loved it. If not, it would, you know, it was a little bit okay. But this time round, what we've done is, in version 7, we've changed the way the logic blocks work. We've now got the normal logic blocks, but we can now create what we call additive logic blocks. I'll explain as we get to them. But I want to give you a bit of background about the skin thus far. So what I've got is some helper text boxes, and these will be displaying variables. I've added 4 variables already: vismap, visinfo. So this one is going to be true or false to show a map button, an information button, an auto rotate button, and a full screen button. Okay, those have already set. And in a controller, what I've got is in the controller we have the buttons, the 4 buttons. They're all stacked on top of each other. The controller is 40 pixels by 40 pixels and anchored bottom left. Now this bit's important. The buttons themselves are also the same size and anchored bottom left. Now why am I anchoring bottom left? Because as you probably are aware, if you've got a container and you've anchored it in the right place, all the child elements can be anchored top left or whatever you want. But if you remember, when we've got positions on our logic blocks, or no, rather, sorry, not logic blocks, on our elements, depending on the anchoring position, you can see these arrows change. Now, to make this job easier, I'm going to add positive numbers together. So if I was starting like this, if the full screen button was anchored top left, if I was adding a positive number, it would be going downwards. So I've got it anchored bottom left, so when I give it a positive number, it will go upwards, and that makes this job and demonstrating this a lot simpler. So that's what all the buttons are anchored to do. They're all the same size, they're all stacked on top of each other. The only odd one is the background. The background was actually 46 by 46 pixels, but I've made the height to 1, so you can hardly see it. And again, it's anchored bottom, so when we get it to grow, it will grow upwards when we start adding positive numbers. It's slightly bigger, so if I was to anchor it in the center, it'd be 0, 0, so it's slightly bigger. So the idea is that you get the button graphic and the border is slightly larger around it. Okay, so let's just, perhaps we can see that, can we? No, not yet. Okay, right, well I will stick that there. And you can see, because we've had those variables in the skin configuration, we can add and show the output. Okay, or rather in these text boxes we can show and see the states of these buttons. So if I was to deselect this, click OK, it says it's false. Okay, so we go back to that, and that's basically where we are with the skin. I did want to explain this because there's a little bit of work that's already gone on before we start, and this is it. But don't worry, as always with our webinars, we'll have all the files available for you to download afterwards. Okay, so now what we want to do then is build this controller. So the first button is going to be my full screen button. This is going to be the one that sits at the bottom. All right, and what do I need to do with that? Absolutely nothing, because that's where it's going to live. But the auto rotate button, I want it to be above that. So what we're going to do then is look at the position logic block, and this is the normal logic block as normal, absolute. What we're going to do is change this to additive. All right, now what's the difference? Right, okay, as a simple explanation, if I had several expressions here, I said, you know, I could say, like, if player width is, I don't know, 1024 or over, or 1024 and under, I could change a logic condition, and what will happen on project open, it will look down the logic block and it would stop at its first trigger that's true. So if the player was larger than 1024, it would stop there and wouldn't look any further down. It stopped, and we would look at that logic condition. And additive, it still looks at them all. All right, and as we go through this, you'll see it. So for the auto rotate button, for it to be higher than the full screen button, I'm going to say the variable, if the full screen button is true, in other words, it's there, I'm going to increase the height by 45 pixels. Okay, click OK. If I save the skin, you'll see that's where that button is. Wow. Right, okay, if we now go to the information button and do exactly the same thing, actually what I can do to save myself a bit of time is copy, close, go to the information button and paste. And what I need to do now is add another expression, and we're going to say this time round, if the variable for the auto rotate is true, add another 45 pixels. Okay, don't know if you can start to see the logic here. So if I save the skin, you can see the information button. So let's go back to the information button and just show you what's going on. So what we're saying is if the full screen button is true, I'm adding 45 pixels, so it's going to go up. Whoop, all right. But the auto rotate button is true as well, so it's going to go up another 45 pixels. All right, so you can see what's going. So we're adding the logic conditions or the expressions together. So right, I'm going to copy this one, click OK, go to the next button, which is going to be the map, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to just paste. When I paste, it automatically changes it to additive. I'm going to add another expression, and this expression is going to be auto. So if the variable what we got auto full screen is true, add another 45 pixels and save. And there we go. We've got all of our buttons in the right places. All right, because it's using this additive. Now the great thing about this, if I was to remove one of these and set it to false, all it's going to do is ask it to come down one by 45 pixels. So it doesn't matter which one I select or deselect. So here, for argument's sake, I can get rid of the information button, click, and it won't go down yet. Right, okay. I want to go there. Right, okay. The map one, the map. What have I done here? Right, okay. With the, I didn't put a back. I changed that to full screen. Right, sorry. Right, so map. Whew. Nice save. And it's still not working. Okay. So I've got full screen. Then we've got auto. Then we've got information. Sorry, information. And that should get the information button. Right, okay, so that's all done. So let's put that back. There we go. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, I've just got my logic blocks mixed up there. Whew. Right, I'll stop there for a second because that's all the buttons arranged. So just using the additive logic block. Need to do the background, but do we have any questions, Karen?
Well, what do you think?
Oh, I was just drinking then.
I'm just kidding. No, so Anonymous says that the additive logic blocks is great stuff. So thanks to the gnomes for that. Thank you for saying that. So Marco, similar to the logic blocks in version 6 of the... similar to the logic block, the logic in version 6 of the controllers, right? But now only the delta needs to be set. Yeah, like, so now you don't have to do a lot of shifting, right? So now you can use delta, the additive, to just show what Martin was just showing with the
absolutely, but with this, there's no actions. If you remember
no
the old
actions,
ones,
no nothing,
because we used to have player state change. So every time the player state changed, when you change something, it would go through all the actions and then just add it all up and then all work it all out. But in this case, no actions. It's all using this additive logic block. Yeah,
super slick. And Federico has, could it have been written with the variable viz full screen and viz auto and viz full screen etc., to increase the y-axis position, like to do the same thing. So could you, instead of having to use additive, could you just use and in one?
Well, no, because
No.
then that becomes a trigger. So you would have to have, yeah, no, because obviously it needs to. It needs to
Yeah,
see all three, and then that becomes a true trigger.
right. It
So
has to be one thing.
that's
I think
it.
that's like in previous versions of Pano2VR, and using the absolute method, it's going to activate the very first, or the first thing that's true. It's going to take that.
That's it. So,
But in the additive, it'll use all of those things and do something with it.
that's right. I mean, the idea is if you've got three conditions and you take one away, it's still saying, is it 1, 2, and 3? And then obviously you would have to have another logic condition to say, well, if it's only this one and this one, do that. And then another logic condition to say, if it's only this, do that. So that's just three things where this is all done in the one logic block. So it's much simpler.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Federico. I hope that was clear. Yeah. And that is it for questions so far.
Right, okay, cool. Right, I'm going to get back onto the background now, because what we've done with the buttons is change their position. But what we're going to do with the background is use a very similar logic block, but for size. And what we're going to do again is say additive. And what we're going to say here is that if the full screen button is available, i.e. it's true, we're going to make the background 45 pixels. Okay, so let's just have a look at that. And it is, and there's the background for that button. Okay, now we're going to add them all in here. So I'm going to add another expression, and we're going to say, so we've got full screen, auto, if that's true, add another 45 pixels. Then we're going to say if variable, so info, if that's true, add another 45 pixels. So each time something is true, we're adding to its size. So let's just save that one. So we should see 3 out of 4. Yep. And then the last one then is the map button. So we're going to say if the variable map is true, add another 45 pixels to it. And there we go. So there's our full controller. Now again, we can select any of these now. So as soon as we take away one of these, we're taking away 45 pixels from the buttons above it. So they'll come down, and we'll take away 45 pixels from the background, and so it will size itself accordingly. Okie dokie. So that's actually quite cool, and that would be, if you like, a controller built that's adaptive by using the skin configuration. But what we want to do is take this one step further. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at does the let's have a look. Does the project have information? All right. Let's just have a look at this. Let's click into the user data. On the first two nodes, I've got a description. On the last two nodes, I don't. All right. So if my information button opened up an information pop-up, which it doesn't, I've not given it the actions to do that yet, but we're more worried about the button, right? So I want this button to only show in these two nodes, but not these two ones, or these two nodes. So how do we do that? Well, this is actually quite easy. I'm saying it's quite easy. It's logical. Let's put it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another variable. All right. And what I'm going to call this is vis underscore info, and for anything else, button. Okay. And that is going to be another true false. But what we're going to use now is one of our variable logic blocks. And this is going to say that if the variable info is true, all right, and placeholders, user data, description, if that doesn't equal a blank, in other words, there's something in it, then this logic will go to true. All right, so this has now got two conditions to this one. So one, I've needed to have selected to see the info button in the first place. And the second condition is there's something in the description text field. Okay, cool. So that's that one sitting there. Now for this to work, what I do need to do is change what variable these elements use. So the background, if I go to size, so here's the info, I will need to change that one to info button, because now we're looking at that variable. All right, and then I think on the map, because that would need to disappear, so that would go info button. So if the info button isn't true, it comes down. Right, all good. And what else do I need to do? The actual info button itself, it needs to hide, so that would also use the variable. Okay, so now we're using this new variable info button. If that's false, this button will hide, the map will slide down, and the background will get smaller. All right, so that is the idea. So let's click OK and save. Now we're going to tidy this up, but you can see here now this info button is true, and the info button, so these are my helper text boxes. I already configured this text box to show the condition of the info, the var info or viz info button. So now you can see that's true. So I've got two true conditions, and we see the button. So if I now go to node 3 that does not have user data, you see that now turns to false, so it hides. Cool. If I whiz it back out again, boom, it's back again. Okay, how cool is that? Right, now what we can do to tidy this up and make it look a lot better is we can give these conditions a transition. So I'm going to give all of these half a second transition, because they do look a lot better with a slight transition going on. So just bear with me for 2 seconds whilst I just complete this task. Okay, and then the okay, and the last one. Oh, I don't need to do the last one, because the full screen button, as we said, doesn't actually go anywhere. It just hides and shows. Right, so let's just see what that's done for me. So if we whiz that around, and you can see it now, we've got this nice slick transition of it going up and down. All right, so that's the information one. Right, before I go on to the next one, is there any questions, Karen? I know I've just landed you with that, but we got any questions on this so far?
No, that's fine. I was just admiring all of this. So Federico just has a simple question, and maybe Martin, you can show this. So when you're in the skin editor and you're adding variables, you can expose those variables, and those are used for the edit skin configuration. So that means when you have a skin, you can have a user choose to show things like the info button or the map or something like that. Can you show the edit skin configuration?
Absolutely. So here in the in the variable table, we add our variable, we select expose it, and then we give it a description. And it's this description we will see in the skin configuration. All right. And this is it. So the actual logic, the default logic is false, but when it's checked, that sends it to true. So just as a thing, okay, you can see up here I've got my information button, so it's selected, so the information button is true here. Okay, if I was to deselect that, you'll now see that it says it's false. If I go back in there and see it's true, it's back to true. Okay, so selecting it, so the default value for that was false, as you can see here. So where's info, this one. So the default value was false, but when you select it and expose it, you're actually telling it in the skin configuration that you want its default to be true. Okay, so that's where you can control it. But what we're doing now is, rather than using this directly in the button, we're using another variable that's comparing to the condition of having the information button true and also having information text in the node. Okay, or description text in the node, should I have said. Right, okay, so we've done that.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to point out that all of our built-in skins, especially all the new ones that we have all of these different edit skin configurations. And the idea is that you don't need to go in and edit those skins. If you are not using a map, you can say, I'm not using a map, or I don't have a description here, or I don't want the info buttons to show up. And
Or
then,
even change its color.
or it can even change its color. So there's a lot that you can do in that edit configuration. Yeah, so that's, that is all.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, okay. There's one, I got a little note here that says maybe to just show find and replace. But I don't know, maybe we are beyond, I don't know where that was happening.
I'm sort of at my hour, and I've got a couple of little bits I want to
Okay.
find and replace. Yeah, that's...
Okay, we're past.
We're past that.
Okay, never mind. You can find and replace in the skin.
Yeah, you can. You can go edit, find and replace. So that's it.
Okay, great. Okay.
All
That's
right.
it.
Right, okay, cool. Right, what I want to do next then is I want to look at the map button. Because what I want this skin to automatically detect if this project has a map or not. If it doesn't have a map, I don't want the button to show. If I give it a custom map, I want the button to show. Right, okay, so how do we do that? Well, like we did before, I can't just use these variables because these are just yes, no's. I can't do any comparisons with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable. So viz underscore map underscore button. Again, this is going to be a true false variable, and I'm going to use the variable logic block, and I'm going to say, is the map button selected? Yes. Also, does the project have a map, or has map? Now, this is an ideal place to stop and say, look what we got, which is we've now got loads more new triggers. You'll find them sort of in the trigger section, but we can now detect, does the map have, or does the project have a map? Does the project have a floor plan? Is that node on the floor plan? Does the project have sound? So everything we're doing now, you can do with all these different attributes, or sorry, buttons. So like, we're just hiding and showing automatically a map button, but if you've added a floor plan to the project, you can do what we're doing now to a floor plan button. Or if your project's got sound, show a sound button, and automatically do that as well. So we've got a lot more triggers in version 7. I urge you to go to our documentation for the version 7 documentation and have a look at all the triggers there, because there's lots of new ones. If you're used to version 6, there is a plethora more of logic triggers. So get yourselves over there, but after the webinar. Okay, moving on then. So does this tour have a map? So yes, it will, or rather, if it does, should I say. So is the map button selected in skin configuration? Yes. Does it have a map? Yes. Then we are going to show the relevant button to show it. Okay. Right. So again, what we did before, because we're no longer using this variable to control things, we're using this. We just have to have a little bit of a change round. So if I go to map position, don't need to do that one. What we're doing. Background. Now this is where I'm going to trip up now. I know it. I can just feel it in my bones. So the map is going to be map button. All right, so that needs that to happen. The map button itself is showing and hiding with the viz map logic. So that needs to, or variable, so that needs to go to map button. And I'm also pretty sure that I've got to, no, full screen. No, right, I think that's it, to be honest. Right, okay, so let's just try that out. So let's just save the project. We've got our map button, so let's just go back to the skin configuration, deselect the map, click, map button's gone. Let's go back to it, map button's back, open up the map tour map, there we go. And the project has got a map, so if I delete the map, so my project no longer has a map, and save it, boom, it's gone. So now let's just add a map back to the project, save it, and boom, the map button's back. There you go. Right, so that's now auto-detecting the map button. Okay, what I was going to show, and I probably still can actually if everyone's okay, is doing the auto rotate, the full screen button. And the reason why I wanted to show that is because of iOS. iOS does not understand the full screen API, so there's absolutely no point having a full screen button if you've got a skin for an iPhone, right? So we can now, using this trick, delete it. But I want to show you how to do that because it's actually very logical, but I just want to show you. So if we're going to go viz underscore, so full screen underscore being GTON underscore button, right? Set that to true, false, that's false. So the logic here is going to be, does it have full screen? Yes. But what we're going to do here is go under advanced and operating system. Select iOS, and we're going to say the comparison is not, so, and the condition true. So let's just talk you through this. One, I'll need the full screen button selected in skin configuration, and the operating system is not iOS, then we will see our full screen button. So if it is iOS, these two conditions won't be true, so therefore this will be false. So automatically the full screen button will hide. Okay, so that would be that. So what we would do again, go back to the background. We would take away the full screen, or rather change the full screen to the full screen button variable. And fortunately, because the full screen is one of the first ones, we would need to go through all of the logic blocks to change this to button. So that's, having said that, that's not overly a chore.
Could you use find and replace for this?
Probably, but yeah, okay. Better I've done it now anyway, because it was that quick anyway. So you know what? There you go. Right, so that's all of that done. So I'm going to save this project. So there's our full screen button. So what I'm going to do now is go to iOS, and we have enter responsive design mode, iPhone 5 refresh. iPhone 8, sorry, refresh. And you can see the full screen button is still visible. What did I do wrong? I did not, under the alpha, change the variable to show and hide it. That's what I didn't do. So there we go. So now it's no full screen button. So this is just I'm using Safari in the developer mode. It has this show or responsive mode thing, so now you can see that this is emulating an iPhone 8, and it still works with the information button. There you go, which is quite cool. And we can come out, and if I exit out of this mode now, developer mode, exit responsive, and refresh, and this is now back to being our desktop. There we go. So that was a little bit rushed. I do apologise, but you know, as I said, this is all recorded. We can rewind, play until you get it, or you know where we are, as Karen said. All right, I think I'm jolly well done here, but I'm going to throw it open to Karen and say, Karen, for the last time, do we have any questions?
No, I think, although Marco is asking if there's going to be a node has sound condition, and currently, no, we don't have one, and that's why you ask. But what you can do is add tags to nodes that have sounds, and then do it this way. But maybe in the future there will be a node has sound trigger.
We actually have a project have sound, but not node. Is that right? I believe that's
Tor,
right.
Tor has sound.
Yeah, Tor has sound. Yeah, so it's a capture all type thing. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, for individual ones, you can use tags.
Yeah.
And then use the tags as triggers to clarify that. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Federico, good. You got that one. Got that question in there quick. A quick question about variables in version 6. If I delete one from the list of variables, it still remains no longer operative within those elements where I had set it. So if you delete one from a list of variables, it still remains.
Well, actually, so if I've got an element that's using I don't know, let's just say a size logic block, and it's using that variable in the size logic block, if you then delete that variable from the variable list in the skin, you're saying it's still remaining. Is that right? Is that where we're going with this? I think for clarity, if it's an issue and you don't think it's right, just email into support@ggnome.com and we can take a look at it there. But if it's version 6, check it out and see if it works in version 7. If it does, upgrade. Brilliant. Job done. Problem solved.
Yeah. No, I think we're just having a hard time, Federico, figuring out what it is exactly is the issue, and but it could be you're not wrong. So maybe always let us know if you have an issue, and we're happy to check it out because
Oh, actually, I'm looking at this. Just had the message pop through.
Oh, good.
And it says the conditions are still there, but in version 7 it warns you. So, yeah. Because obviously in version 7 we have lots of new things that if you do something wrong, so if I duplicate an element for argument's sake, it says, look, warning, this element is not unique, and we get lots of warnings. So if you do have a variable in an element that's not in the variable table, you will get a warning box telling you that. And if you want to, there's also edit, find warnings, and look, you can even find and replace it here as well. That's come up so many times.
Comes in handy.
Comes in handy. So this is the find, and we can exact match and do all sorts and replace, and so we can type in, and you can get from IDs and that. Anyway, that's a different story. I think we've held you guys up long enough, and I've been pretty buzzing about this all week. This webinar, because it's a good subject, love it, and it's just brilliant. And so from me, I'm going to duck out and say thank you very much, and until next time, over to you, Karen.
Thank you too, and until next time. We don't know when that'll be, but until next time, and thanks a lot for your attention and questions, and we'll see you around.
All right, bye.
Bye.